Thank you once again for spending some of your valuable time with us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And you're going to be rewarded for this one because it is quarterback coach Dan Pitcher, and he's talking about Joe Burrow. And whenever Joe Burrow is involved, no matter what, whether it's headbands, what the situation is, it always becomes big. The interesting thing, Dan Pitcher, during the course of our discussion, I asked him, what is the one thing that separates Joe Burrow from the pack? He gave me an answer to that, but he said there were two or three other things that were part of the process as well in terms of making Joe Burrow. And he talked about those. So you're going to find out what Dan Pitcher thinks are the components that make Joe Burrow the quarterback that he is, the person that he is. Joe Burrow is definitely special. We're going to find out why in Dan Pitcher's opinion. Appreciate you carving time to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, as always, emanating from our outstanding studios. And we have a very, very special guest joining us right now. Quarterback coach extraordinaire, Dan Pitcher, Cincinnati Bengals. Coach is a guy named Joe Burrow. I mean, man, everything Joe Burrow touches, wears, whatever, turns to gold, Coach. I mean, I don't know if you got your headband, but I tried to get a couple for my grandkids and go to the pro shop and sold out. I mean, it's unbelievable. Anything to do with Joe Burrow, it's a hit. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, you can see why the community gets excited about him.
Yep.
The nice thing, as a new parent, I've got a 15-month-old, so I'm a couple years yet from, him emulating professional athletes. But I got to think that it's nice as a parent if your kid does look up to a guy like Joe, because he's got the cool factor, but he's also everything you'd want in a person, and all the qualities that make him successful that you'd hope to have, and that your kids will develop. So. It's good, man. It's good for everybody involved.
No question. I mean, I don't think you can find a better role model. I mean, if your kid has decided that Joe Burrow is his role model, nothing wrong with that. No question about it. No way, Jose. So Joe Burrow, Coach, he's been in the weight room and he's been working hard. That's the thing I like a lot about Joe is, when people aren't watching, he's doing all his work. I mean, he does all his work. People are watching and not watching. He's committed to the game and committed to being as ready and as good as he can possibly be to be prepared to execute that game. And the added strength, he's got a little more zip in the ball. Have you noticed anything different?
No, I mean, he's throwing it great. He's in great shape. It's very important to him. Like you said, it's probably the most important thing in his life, and so he spends a lot of time on it, and he came in great shape. So just really happy with where he's at right now, and happy to be back on the field and getting some work in.
The football gods owe him an entire offseason and year of total health. Give Joe Burrow a full year of the off, because I mean, man. The appendectomy last year, it was crazy. It was because he's always in phenomenal shape, like you said, and he was last year as well. And now he even looks a cut above, if that's possible. And he's earned it, man. Come on, football gods. This guy has earned a chance to just let him be Joe Burrow health-wise for an entire year. What do you think, Coach?
Sure. Yeah, I'll sign up for that. We're looking forward to a full off season and training camp, and just getting all those reps. It's great because, we have a nucleus that's been together now for 3-4 years for some of those guys. But all those reps are still important, because we're constantly trying new things and moving guys around. And so, very important for us to get those right now, which we are, and, excited about carrying that into training camp.
Talk about that a little bit, Coach, because, it's like, Jamar was talking about it a little bit in the locker room. Like when he moves around, that means others are moving around. There's a trickle down effect there. I mean, it's playing chess. With the different pieces. So is that you just want to get a look against your defense, live rep against a pretty good defensive football team, what you think has merit and what you think, let's book that one for a while?
Yeah, some of it is that. I mean, really, you just want to bank reps at this part of the year on concepts that you anticipate you may use during the season, whether or not they're good versus your defense or not. Right now we're not going against the defense; we're going on air. So it's a great time to move guys around, especially like I said, because you're in year 3, year 4, year 1, year 2. You're just trying to install the offense. You want guys to learn their primary position and feel comfortable with everything we're asking them to do. But now you're in year 3, year 4. You can be a little bit more creative and move guys and let them bank some reps, some physical reps of actually doing it in maybe some different spots. And whether you ultimately use it or not, I mean, that's going to depend on a week-to-week game planning process and how Zach feels and Brian feels and whether or not it works that week. But it's always good to get that stuff worked on and get those reps banked.
So your quarterback room has taken on a different complexion. Brandon Allen did a great job with the Bengals. Now he's with the San Francisco 49ers, and you bring in another quarterback, veteran quarterback that Trevor Siemian's been around the league. I didn't realize it was as many teams as he said for his 9-year career, and he's had to learn, unlearn, relearn offenses and different coaching styles. And how valuable is it to have a guy like Trevor Siemian as part of your quarterback room now?
Very valuable. First and foremost, I'll just speak quickly to Brandon. He was a huge part of what we did the last couple of years.
Yep.
Thankfully we didn't need his performance on the field as much the last 2 years, maybe as we did 3 years ago. But Brandon's a pro's pro. He's a great person. He's a great player. And so, I think, we really appreciate the effort that he put in here. And it's just the nature of the business, right? Players move on, coaches move on, things are fluid, things change, but really appreciative of the time, that we spent with him and what he contributed. And then when it comes to Trevor, you're talking about a guy that has, as you mentioned, played, in 5 or 6 different buildings, has been in the quarterback room with Peyton Manning as a player, has been in the quarterback room with Drew Brees as a player, guys that are going to be in the Hall of Fame, and has been in a bunch of different systems, incredibly smart, still playing at a very high level. And so, really brings a lot of things to the table and can be a really good contributor for us on the field and in the room. And when you add that to a guy like Jake Browning, who all he's done since he showed up is earn the trust of his teammates and his coaches, it makes for a really fun room to be around because you have high quality people and high quality players. And I'm really looking forward to watching those guys compete with one another, for that backup job. And I think it'll bring out the best in both of them.
I know Joe Burrow is very, very effusive in his praise, what Brandon Allen provided for him. When he came off the football field, not talking to coaches, obviously, is paramount. That's first and foremost. But then, Brandon they'd converse, and Brandon would tell him some things that he noticed as well. And it's just that's an invaluable thing to have a guy that you trust like that. And how big is that? And what kind of how is that role handled? I mean, some guys obviously handle it better than others. What are you looking for out of your quarterback when the starting quarterback comes off the football field? What are you looking for from the other guys, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, everybody plays a role, right? That we're the only position group in the building where only one guy gets to play, other than the specialists, and most of the time there's only one guy at that spot anyway. And so it's very unique. You're dealing with hyper-competitive people who have risen to this point in their careers because of that competitiveness. But everybody understands at the end of the day, Joe Burrow's the quarterback, and we all have a role to play to support Joe Burrow. And what that role is going to depend on what your background's been, what you've seen, and how you can contribute. And so it's definitely a big part of the job. You got to be able to play. That's line one, right? You have to be able to execute the offense, and in the event that we need you to play, we have to be able to count on you to lead the offense down the field and win us football games. But aside from that, there is definitely a big component of that role, which is you're in a support role for the starter. And he has to be able to rely on you as another set of eyes, things you're seeing during the game, things you see in practice, discussions you can have in the room. And that's why it's so important to have such a great environment there. And really, I'm very pleased with the three guys that we have right now.
Do the other quarterbacks, they take specific things like, I'll watch the back end, I'll watch for at the mid-level for blitz packages, I'll watch for this, watch for that, or does everybody just watch everything and just kind of give their opinions on what they're seeing?
Sure. I mean, there might be certain games where I might ask, last year I might have asked Jake or asked Brendan, hey, keep an eye on, the safeties here and on first and second down, and just see if you can see their communication, see if there's anything you can pick up, hand signals, things of that nature, that now when we come to the sideline and talk about it, you can add that little piece of information. Hey, I saw him talking to, the free safety when we sent the motion, and, so this is what they're communicating. We can expect this again if we use the same motion, things like that. But it's really just it's a ongoing communication. We look through the pictures, we talk about each play. If a guy has something to add, he adds it. And really that's why it's so critical that you have the right people, because in those moments, there's no time to really mess around. I mean, it's got to be meaningful things said, come to a consensus. This is what we're going to do next time. Okay, boom, we move on. And that's why having, really smart guys who understand football and understand the system is an important deal.
So OTAs are upon us, and Joe obviously knows this offense cold. He could install it. I mean, he knows it inside out. When you're bringing in young players, young wide receivers, young running backs, and are you like, all right, guys, get your nose in the playbook. We don't want to go back to square one if we don't have to, but you go back to square one for everybody. How do you handle that when you start the OTAs? Where do you begin, and what's that process like?
Yeah, I think it changes probably based on where you are as a unit and where you are in the life of who you are as a team, right? And so thankfully, as I've referenced earlier, we're in to year 4 now, and so there is definitely an element of like we're going at a certain speed, and it's incumbent on anybody who's joining us to catch themselves up to that speed. Now, with that being said, all of our position coaches do an outstanding job of installing from the ground up for the young guys. I mean, there's extra meeting time available for the rookies. Guys that are joining us via free agency have gone above and beyond already to really try to dive into the playbook and understand what we're asking of them. And so both of those things happen. You spend the extra time with the new guys, and then it's on the new guys to realize that you're hopping on a freight train that's going 100 miles an hour, and we're not slowing down. So that's the urgency there to learn it and be ready to contribute.
So Joe made mention of he felt like last year was his best year. Just the nuances of playing quarterback in the National Football League, whatever those may be, he feels like he's getting a better grasp in executing those at a more proficient level. Do you agree totally? Yeah.
We've talked about this before too. I think it's guys, good players who care and put effort in, they're going to get better in year 3, year 4, year 7, year 10. The greatest ever, the ones that are able to play it for 15 years, they're always finding ways to get better. And then towards the end, maybe as the physical dips off, they're still getting better mentally. And that's what allows them to play so long. So it doesn't surprise me that he would say that. I agree with that assessment. I expect that this year will be better than last because he's had more opportunity. He's seen more. He's more comfortable. He can access things even quicker than he's been able to and get us into great looks and make great decisions. And so we're really excited to see him do that now coming up this season.
When he comes to the sideline, do you guys talk about things that you anticipate might happen based on what you've already seen? Or do you just talk about what you've seen and what, let's just focus on the next play? Well, how do your conversations go with a guy like Joe Burrow?
It's both those things. First, you have to just come to an agreement on what did we see just happen, right? We have to make sure that everybody sees that through the same set of eyes. Okay, this is what we can all agree just happened. This is the reaction we got from the defense. Now that we know that, how can we project forward based on what we're going to do next? And maybe something that we just saw informs what we're going to do next. And so it's really it's an ongoing dialogue between the coaches and the players, particularly the quarterbacks. And the key is that when we get done looking at those pictures and we're ready for the next drive, that everybody understands what just happened and what's about to happen. And I think we do a good job of that.
Joe, as expected, in my opinion, anyway, with Joe Burrow, he handles everything as a pros pro. He handled the contract talk very well. He obviously has a very, very close bond with that wide receiver core. There's no question about that. And it's the best in the league. There's no doubt in my mind it's the best wide receiver core. What do you think of the potential additions that you've seen in the draft picks and in college free agents that are out there competing?
Yeah, I think we added great players, across the board, and now we're very early on in the process, but they've done everything in their power to this point to assimilate with what we've got going on, and I think there's a lot of potential there. Whether that be through free agency acquisitions, a guy like Irv Smith, the young rookie receivers that we're able to add, running back. I think there's. And then obviously up front with adding Orlando, that's a huge deal. You're talking about a Super Bowl champ who has proven what he can do in this league, and so we're excited, man. It's a really good group, and we've added the right kinds of people. Zach from day one has been very consistent on how he wants to build this team and the kinds of people that we want to build it with. And we've just kept doing that. And so, really excited for this group.
Watching Irv Smith out there in the bubble, Jamar Chase, said, look, I've competed against this guy back, in the high school days. And the thing about him, man, when after he has his hands on the football, it's kind of when the fun starts. This dude can do a lot after catch. And he seems to have that type of ability, when you watch him run around out there, and Charlie Jones running routes. He's so precise with his route running. I'm just visualizing, man, Joe is going to have a connection with this kid because he's going to be exactly where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there, with his ability to sink his hips, get in and out of his cuts, and get to places. There are some components that's like, boy, you start adding to the mix of what you've already got. Gosh, man, it could be pretty incredible.
Yeah, like I said, it's exciting. We're just getting to know a lot of those guys. That's the fun part is, when you have new pieces, and it takes time to see what they do well. Maybe things that they don't do as well. How can we use them in the right spots, and then let them just go prove it. Right. It's a talented roster with a lot of really good players at the top of that depth chart at these positions. And all that does is raise the level of play. Rising tide raises all boats. Like you have to play well if you want an opportunity to get on the field when you're a part of a team that has the talent that we have. And so just excited to see those guys get a chance to do that.
The thing I admired most about Joe's play last year was his patience, because everybody was playing cover two, that deep two safety deal, and making Joe check it down to the running back, and he would do it. It's like, hey, dude, you know what? I have faith and confidence in my teammates executing at a high level, and we're gonna make you pay for deciding to do this. And then ultimately things would shift. But to do that and not force the issue, I think that's something that he is. I'm not saying it's an underrated part of his game, but it is I think a phenomenal part of his game is he is so patient in doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's your job. That's what we're called to do. You have to. You can project what you think is going to happen as much as you want, but at the end of the day, there's one guy out there holding the football that needs to see it in real time and make a good decision. And understanding that, a check down to the running back versus cover two, the example you just gave, that's not a surrender play. If you do that with the right timing and the right ball placement and how it fits within the offense, that can be as effective a play as ripping a 20-yard dagger or trying to rip a hole shot. If you get that ball on the back, he turns, cuts up the field, and gets 10 yards after the catch. I mean, it's understanding that all those things are weapons to move the football down the field. And when you do it and you play fast, that's what gets those guys opportunity to make plays once the ball's in their hand.
When you have had time now to reflect on last season and the evolution of the offense during the course of the season, did you take any twists or turns offensively that you personally it was unexpected to you, or did it go pretty much according to Hoyle?
No, I mean, I think we really just pride ourselves on trying to, on a week by week basis, just do what that particular week calls us to do, and then once you're in the game, do what the circumstances of that moment call for you to do. And so when you live in that world, I think you can lay your head down at night and feel like you did the right thing in the moment. And so from that standpoint, nothing really stands out as having surprised me. Obviously, teams played us differently last year than they played us in 2021. That's a little bit of that is a league-wide trend. A little bit of that is Cincinnati Bengals. But that's just a fact. And so that's okay. They're allowed to do that. It's our job then to recognize that and adjust. And I think we did. And so that's always going to happen. It's going to happen again this year. There's going to be some new little tweak or trend, or, we're playing some different opponents. How do they see us? How does it fit what they do? And that's what we get paid to do is answer those questions and answer them in a timely manner.
It's really exciting to be in the locker room and to see veteran free agents come to the locker room excited about being a part of what you guys are doing offensively with the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, being the point person in that regard, and rookies that are drafted are so excited about being drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals and having a chance to play with that offense and what you guys are doing with Joe Burrow executing it. How much fun is it for you guys to see the energy level of these players, whether it be a veteran free agent or rookies that are so, excited about maybe being part of one of the best offenses in the National Football League?
It's exciting. It really is. I mean, it's a fun time of year because we've been away from these guys for such a long period of time, and then guys come back rejuvenated, the guys that have been here, the new guys. It is fun to see new guys in an environment that they're walking in here thinking, I'm going to Cincinnati to win a Super Bowl. I mean, that's the reality. That's the mentality. And we understand how hard that's going to be. And that's the work that we're putting in right now. But that brings an excitement. When you're, a team that's been in the AFC Championship game the last 2 seasons, the Super Bowl 2 years ago, we're doing everything we can to put ourselves in position to finish the job. But there is definitely a level of excitement, a level of urgency that makes the job even more fun. That's why we do it. And it's a good time to be around this program, and, really looking forward to the season.
Joe mentioned that, he feels like he's playing at a high level, but he feels like there's room to grow. And that's exciting when you realize how high his floor is and how high that ceiling could be. It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, that's something that, man, you just don't have those situations come your way during the course of a coaching career that often, do you?
No, you don't. I mean, you're very fortunate to coach him. Doesn't surprise me at all that he would say that, right? That's why he is who he is, and I think most guys are wired that way. I think it'd be rare to talk to a pro who's worth anything and have him say, "Oh, I got it all figured out."
Yeah, right.
There's no more room. I've reached the pinnacle. But it's true. I mean, he approaches every day that way. He's excited to come to work, and I do expect him to get better. So it'll be a fun process.
This is probably an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. He's got so many attributes that are just, translate to production and being the type of quarterback he is in the National Football League. If you had to pick one What is the most compelling attribute that Joe Burrow has that makes him the player that he is?
Incredibly rare competitiveness. And that's hard for me to pick because there's probably 3 or 4 that I would say really make him who he is. But if I had to pick one out of those 3 or 4, that's the difference. That's what ultimately should allow Joe to win, win a championship, hopefully win more than one. That's it, because that's what drives everything else, right? If you're not a rare competitor, that's the fuel for everything, and he is that and more. So that's that. If I was forced to pick one, that's the one I'd pick.
Okay, so you mentioned 3 or 4 others, and I know you could probably list an endless number, but give us a couple of 3 of those others, Coach.
His processing ability is incredible. Recall and processing, that's playing the position. That's the mental component of playing the position. Is, can I recall information, these looks that I've seen on tape, that I've seen live before? How fast can I recall that? And then how fast can I process in the moment to make the right decision? So he does that better than anyone I've ever been around. He's more accurate than anyone I've ever been around, which to me is a much more important trait than how hard a quarterback throws the football, which he also throws it plenty hard, but he's the most accurate person I've ever been around. And then he's got rare spatial awareness, pocket sense, ability to move and feel and understand where space is about to open up, where it's closing, both as a passer and then as just an athlete and a mover on the football field. So, you combine those 3 things with his rare competitiveness, and that's how you get Joe Burrow.
Man, tell you what, fired up, Coach. Fired up. It's season's going to be here sooner than we realized. They just came out with the days and times, the preseason games, the 3 preseason games, and I guess what's your overall reaction? As a coach, you have no control over the schedule. You play who they tell you're going to play. But 17th toughest schedule in the National Football League, fewest travel miles. You don't have to travel all over hell and creation to play the 2023 season. Overall, what do you think of the schedule?
Really the only thing that matters to me when I look at it, like the primetime games are different. You kind of look to see where those are, because that's going to affect your preparation, and that's going to mean the week's a little bit different leading up to it. Who you play early, that first month, you kind of look at that, because those are the teams where you're really going to have to look back to the prior season for a lot of your preparation materials, because there's just not going to be enough leading up to that game from the current year.
Right.
I always kind of chuckle about the strength of schedule thing, because I think it's kind of hilarious to talk about that in May, when nobody, every year's a new year, and you think who's going to be good, but you're going to get to week 8 next year, and there's going to be 5 teams that nobody thought were going to be good that are going to be in contention for the playoffs, and there's going to be 5 teams that people expected to be good that have losing records, and that's the NFL. So strength of schedule, really, I don't put much, lend much credence to that at all. But that's okay. It's fun for people to talk about. There's people need stuff to talk about this time of year. So that's kind of my look at the schedule.
Yeah, it's interesting. The bye's fairly early, but then you have the Thursday night game only a month later, which is kind of a mini bye to help with that bye being a little bit early. I think that kind of balances it off a little bit. It's interesting how you open with Cleveland, close with Cleveland. That's never happened before. 2 division games to start the season. Then you don't play a division game until 2 months later. And then you have 2 division games in a row. And then toward the end of the season, you get Pittsburgh and Cleveland, sandwich in Kansas City. So those division games, they're spaced out, but when you play them, you're playing them in pairs. It's a very interesting schedule, the way the whole thing sorts out. But like you said, Coach, you just whoever's next, that's all you worry about. Get ready for that opponent, and appreciate you joining us, carving time. I know it's a busy time for you. You guys are back out in the field. You got organizational meetings going on, and for you to take time to visit us means a lot, and can't thank you enough, sir.
No problem, Lap. Good talking to you.
Same here, my man.
All right. See you soon.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team. Hey there, everybody. I'm Dave Lapham, and we do a podcast called In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And if you want to hit the like button on when you're reserving any video, that'd be a good thing to do. And if you want to subscribe and not miss any videos, make sure you do that, because we are going to try to cover the Cincinnati Bengals every way that they can be covered.